Hi, my name's Adam Hollander, and today we are going to talk about changing the game for your sales organization, specifically how you can get more out of your sales contests and incentives to drive better performance from your reps. A little bit about me before we get started. Up until recently, I was the founder and CEO of Fantasy Sales Team, which was recently acquired by Microsoft. But before that, I spent virtually my entire career in sales. I've been in inside roles, outside roles, management roles, and at Fantasy Sales Team, I personally worked with hundreds of companies to help them effectively motivate and drive improved results from their sales and service teams. So let's talk about what we're going to cover today. We're going to go through the top reasons why traditional incentives and contests tend to underperform or flat out fail. We're also going to talk about why gamification for sales is generally misunderstood or poorly implemented. And if you're not familiar with what gamification is, don't worry, we're going to get into that in a couple of minutes. We're going to give you 10 ways to get real and immediate value from gamification tactics and solutions. By the way, things that you can do with or without a gamification platform. And lastly, we're going to go through 3 case studies showcasing actual results that companies have seen, both SMB, mid-market, as well as enterprise, so that you can set some benchmarks and understand what you can accomplish by implementing what we're going to show you inside of this webcast. So let's talk about traditional sales contests. Traditional incentives, it's all about be a top performer, earn extra rewards. Sales contests are an almost expected component of most compensation plans these days. But as a sales manager, you have to ask yourself, are your top performers really the ones that need the extra push? Generally, the answer to that is no. Your top performers are self-motivated. They're already driven to overachieve against their metrics, and they're going to do so without a contest or even without prizes. Most sales managers will tell you that they want to focus on their middle 50% and in some cases even their bottom 30%. These are the folks that really need the extra push. But if the top performers are always winning, are you really motivating that middle 50% and bottom 30%, or are they disengaging right off the bat because they realize and recognize that they're probably not going to take home the prizes? The second thing you have to ask yourself is, are your reps generally as engaged in the last week of your sales contests and competitions as they are in the first? Most sales managers have told me that when they run sales competitions, most of their reps stop paying attention the moment they realize they've fallen behind or out of contention. They go back to their status quo and end up in a situation where you're really only motivating your top 20% and only motivating them for a fairly short duration as they fall off over time because they realize they can no longer take home the prizes. So why does this keep happening? If traditional sales contests are so broken and they're not motivating the section of the team that you want for long enough, why do sales managers keep running the same old tired contests over and over again? There's a reason for this. Many top performers aspire to become managers, and many of them are successful in doing so. And most of the time, those top performers implement the same types of incentives, contest spiffs that motivated them when they were a top performing rep or agent. And so the problem perpetuates itself that you have top performers putting contests in place because they remember being motivated by them, and they aren't empathizing with that middle 50%, bottom 30% who really need the extra push. So once I realized this, I reacted to it. I went into a room, I started whiteboarding out ideas of how I could change the structure of my sales contests, how I could reimagine them to motivate more people for a longer duration. The first thing I came up with was I'm going to allow my reps to earn points in these games for everything that they're responsible for, not just their results. I want them to earn points, of course, for closing deals, driving revenue, hitting quota, but I also want them to earn points for making more phone calls, holding more meetings, and driving more opportunities. And I figured this would mitigate the first part of that problem. My reps who aren't the traditional top performers will be able to stay in contention longer because they're always in control of their behaviors and their activities. But then once I put this point system into place, it occurred to me that this could look a lot like fantasy football. What if everyone inside of the company, from our CEO to our receptionist, could draft their own fantasy teams of the players, my reps, and become invested in their success? I wanted to change the culture. I wanted to create an environment where everyone would be pushing and relying on each other to succeed against their KPIs and their metrics. So I started figuring out how I would go about implementing this. I started talking to managers about it, reps about it. Everyone loved the idea, but very quickly I hit a wall. And that wall was that it was going to be an operational nightmare to manage this. Doing it in spreadsheets and whiteboards and email, it was going to be hard enough just keeping track of the points and making them visible, let alone allowing everyone in the company to build and draft teams and change their roster week over week. And so I wasn't able to do it. So with that in mind, let's talk for a moment about gamification. Now, if you're not familiar with gamification, its most basic definition is turning something into a game that traditionally isn't one for motivational purposes. And with that definition, you could argue that sales has been gamified for a very long time, decades before this term was ever coined. But what's really happened is a lack of technology has prevented us from looking at our contests and incentives differently, from looking at how do we motivate our employees differently. But now that our sales reps and our agents are using CRM and digital day in and day out, it's opening up new doors. It's allowing us to really change the game and change the way that we can implement motivational tactics, change the way that we can implement new types of incentives and games that truly will motivate the entire team for a longer duration and take gamification to a whole new level. Most people view gamification as leaderboards and badges and trophies and avatars, and it is all of those things. And I'll tell you that most companies that approach me tell me they're looking at gamification because they think it looks fun and they want to create engagement amongst their team. And I'm not going to say that that's wrong. It is fun. It is about leaderboards and badges to an extent. But in my opinion, the real reason that you should evaluate gamification for your sales team is to drive meaningful and measurable results. Without that, there's really no reason to do this. It's great to do fun things, but in sales, it's all about hitting our numbers, hitting our quota, hitting our metrics, and you need to drive measurable, impactful results. And what I'm going to show you in the rest of this presentation is how to get that out of gamification and make sure that you're not implementing gamification simply for gamification's sake. So today, you'll have the opportunity to learn from the early adopters. At Fantasy Sales Team, we evaluated the results and data from hundreds of contests that companies ran through our platform. Companies of all sizes, industries, team types, and we took away 10 rules for success, things that you can implement immediately to get more out of your contests, incentives, and any gamification platform that you put in place. So rule number 1, you want to balance your metrics. Make sure that you're incorporating activity and results-oriented metrics into whatever incentive or game you're putting into place. What I mean by that is, of course, you want to allow your reps to achieve and compete based on closing deals and hitting quota and driving revenue, but also allow them to compete by making more phone calls, holding more meetings, creating more pipeline, generating opportunities, resolving customer issues. You also want to make sure that you weight your metrics and balance them equally between activity and results. In Fantasy Sales Team, sometimes we would see companies creating games where they would allow their reps or agents to earn 1,000 points for closing a deal and 1 point for every 10 phone calls they make. And we all know that when it's that misweighted, you're not going to have your reps focusing on the activity metrics. The results-oriented metrics are going to eclipse the game. You want to create weekly caps on your metrics as well. You want to prevent reps from pulling too far ahead because they close that one monster deal and all of a sudden it's impossible to catch up. You can also utilize floors to set baseline expectations. So say to your reps that you're not going to earn any points for your first 100 calls. You're going to start earning points each week at your 101st call, or your third created opportunity, or the second deal that you close. Lastly, it's very tempting for companies, especially when you're using gamification software, to incorporate every single metric that you measure inside of your company because it's now easy to do because it's technology enabled. But when you do that, you tend to spread the focus too thin. You want to make sure that you incorporate only your most important metrics into the games, and you can, of course, change those up from month to month, quarter to quarter. Number 2, teams. If we have proven anything through the hundreds of games that we've run through Fantasy Sales Team, it's that team-based competition is far more effective than when you ask your reps to go it alone. You want to create a culture of encouragement and coaching and positive pressure where everyone is pushing and relying on each other to perform. You can still showcase individual rankings. You can even award prizes based on individual performance, but do that simultaneously to team-based competition and make your reps accountable to one another. So number 3, Keep your results highly visible. Make sure the rankings from your game are visible at all times through multiple platforms. TV screens around your office or call center, available through the web, mobile devices, push notifications, email. The more ways that you can keep the results of these games visible to not just the reps who are participating, but to managers and leadership and everyone else in the company, the more participation you're going to get and the more motivated you're going to make your team. Now, there are many leaderboard solutions in the market that focus entirely on this, but I want to reiterate that it's simply one component of success. If all you do is make individual-based rankings and points available on a TV screen inside of your office or your center, then who's generally going to be at the top of that leaderboard most of the time? Your top 20%. You have to ask yourself, is it really going to motivate your middle 50%, bottom 30%? Is it really going to get reps pushing and relying on one another? This is one component of success, but it is not gamification in its entirety. So number 4, update your results as often and frequently as you can. Ideally, you want to tie any contest or incentive that you're running directly to CRM for continuous real-time updates. But I will tell you that reps truly do react to their ranking and position. And the more often they see changes, the better results that you're going to see from the game or any solution you're putting into place. Now, if you're not implementing a gamification platform or tying directly to CRM and are scoring your game through Excel or whiteboards or email, you simply want to score the game and update the results as often as you can. So rule number 5, create multiple ways and paths to win inside of your games and contests. If you only have one way to win in a game, a rep is going to disengage and stop paying attention the moment that they've fallen out of contention and realize they can no longer take home any prizes. And so by creating multiple ways to win or paths to take, it will keep more reps in contention longer, and it will keep them engaged longer, driving better results for you as a manager. So things that you can think about are ways to win as a team, ways to win as an individual, and even ways to win as an individual can be broken down by metric or by area, by position, by team. By creating multiple different paths that a rep can take, you will absolutely keep them engaged for a longer duration. Rule number 6, you don't need to break the bank when it comes to determining prizes for your games or contests. I get questions all the time from sales managers saying, I don't have the budget to put thousands of dollars of prizes into these games. Am I still going to get value or results out of it? And the answer is enthusiastically yes. Now, you're always going to have some reps that are more coin-operated. They're going to be more motivated by prizes and dollars than they would be intrinsic or experiential rewards. But in my experience, most reps are just as motivated by things that make their success highly visible inside of the organization. To give you an example, we had a company that ran a game through Fantasy Sales Team a few months ago where the prize was to pie their CEO in the face at the end of the game on stage at the company sales meeting. They came back and told us that the reps were much more motivated by that than they were the physical prizes for second, third place. We've seen companies go out and get physical trophies that they hand out at the end of their game. Same trophies that you might buy for your 6-year-old at the end of their soccer game. We've had companies give out reserved parking spaces, days of paid time off, lunch with their sales manager, extra leads. There are plenty of creative things that you can do to get a lot out of your sales contests and incentives without breaking the bank on prizes. Rule number 7, hold a proper kickoff and generate excitement from the start. Don't just use email. Get everyone together, whether it's in person, on a webinar, a conference call, and make sure that they know how exciting this is. Talk to them about the ways to win, the ways to earn points, the prizes. And if I can give you one piece of advice at all, don't just use email. I've seen too many companies, especially larger ones, try to simply blast out an email announcing the contest or the incentive, and then they're confused a week later why half of the team doesn't even know that it's happening. Number 8, get management engaged. Getting manager and executive buy-in is essential. If reps know that their manager, that their executives are paying attention to the results of the game, it's going to motivate them. Better yet, if you can involve them, that's the way to truly drive better performance. So as an example I gave earlier, in Fantasy Sales Team, your CEO, your manager can actually draft teams of the reps and become invested in the success of their performance. Now it's not just seeing the performance up on a television screen or seeing an email come across about who's winning. They're actually rooting for players that they've chosen. If you can find ways to get managers engaged in your games, you will enthusiastically see better results. Rule number 9, hit the reset button from time to time. Run shorter games and give yourself the opportunity to start over. It gives everyone in the game a fresh start, regardless of their position with their team or as an individual. It gives you the opportunity to learn from past games and make adjustments. And it also gives you a chance to change your metrics from game to game so that you can motivate the things that are most important to you this month or this quarter. And lastly, Rule 10, measure and analyze. Ask yourself why you're doing this. Why are you running a contest or incentive? Why are you implementing a gamification tool? And closely examine the before and after metrics. Talk with your team for feedback, figure out how you can improve, and make sure that you're doing this for the right reasons. You are implementing gamification, you are running contests because you want to drive impactful improvement across your most important metrics, and you want to drive results. You want to motivate as much of your team for as long as possible and make sure that whatever you are putting into place to do that is driving towards that goal. So in summary, balance your metrics. Use results and activity metrics to keep more of your team in contention longer. Utilize team-based competition. Get everyone in the company pushing and relying on each other instead of focusing only on their individual performance. Keep results highly visible. Utilize TV screens, mobile devices, email, web-based access, anything you can so that everyone in the company can see what's going on inside of your game at all times. Update scoring as frequently as possible. Ideally, tie your games directly to CRM for real-time scoring and updates. Create multiple ways and paths to win. This will keep more of your team engaged longer because they'll be able to stay in contention in at least one area. Utilize creative prizes. You don't need to break the bank to get the most out of contests, incentives, and gamification. Hold a real kickoff. Make sure that you get everyone in the company excited from the moment that you launch the game. Get your executives and managers involved and ideally invested in the success of the players and the reps in the game. Reset often. Give your reps and agents an opportunity to start fresh from time to time and give yourself the opportunity to change up the metrics that are most important to you in a given month or quarter. And lastly, measure and analyze. Understand exactly why you've implemented gamification or why you're running contests and incentives, and make sure you don't lose sight of that so that you can measure against it over time. All right, so now the fun part. Let's talk about a couple case studies, companies that have implemented gamification the right way and the results that they achieved from it. So SCI, very large, billion-dollar public company. They took 130 of their reps and they put them on fantasy sales team for 60 days. At the end of the 2 months, they compared their results against 700 similar reps who were not participating in the game. What they found was that those playing fantasy sales team closed 88% more deals at over twice the average contract value, and they were logging into CRM 28% more often. Now, those are some really impactful results for any sales manager to evaluate. Imagine someone coming to you saying they can magically double your sales, double your average contract value, and get all of your reps logging into CRM more often. That's exactly what SCI achieved when they implemented gamification the right way. So another case study is HewlettPackard. Now, a very large division of HP, their security products division in 2013, was having some challenges. They were down 16% year over year in the Americas, 20% year over year in EMEA, and on a particular product that was of high strategic importance to them, they were down 47%. So on March 1st, they launched Fantasy Sales Team. 30 days later, the Americas were up 44%, EMEA was up 31%, Product A sales were up 9%, and 30 days after that, Americas were up 94%, EMEA up 48%, and Product A was up 49%. So to look at a few quotes directly from the team, Chris Hill, Worldwide Director of Strategic Sales, said it was extremely successful right from the get-go. Game adoption was high, feedback very positive. Rick Hansen, Vice President of Worldwide Sales and Field Ops, this changed the game. No longer was it a single carrot that was out there for a sales executive to chase with a single goal. So the last case study I'll share with you is Wireless Zone. Wireless Zone, in one of their retail locations, implemented Fantasy Sales Team, and after 30 days, sales increased 176%. They also placed more points on selling their Edge product, which was their most important product at the time. Edge sales went from 18% to 53% that month. Profit margins also rose by 9%. Brian Brady, the franchise owner of this particular location, said, "My reps love that they finally have a way to beat out the traditional top players. One of my lowest performers currently holds the top position with his fantasy team. This is a guy that's never on any leaderboard. He's never been top in anything. Now he's crushing it, performing 150% better than he was before. He's recognized as a leader, and the program is doing exactly what it's designed to do." So hopefully what you've seen through these case studies is you can drive some amazing results if you implement gamification the right way. If you balance your metrics, keep results highly visible, implement team competition, and change your culture where everyone is pushing and relying on each other and investing in the success of your reps. So if you really want to change the game, here are the most important takeaways from this presentation. Your goal is to motivate as much of your team for as long as possible. Never lose sight of that. You're always going to have your top 20%, middle 50%, and bottom 30%. And your goal is always to keep all three tiers motivated for as long as possible. Technology enables us now to run much more dynamic incentives and contests than we were ever capable of before, and it allows us to do so without any additional operational hassle. So look into and evaluate and hopefully take advantage of gamification solutions and platforms that allow you to get more out of what you're already doing. But with that in mind, it's not just about the tools. You need to have the right processes, the right strategy, and measurement in place to truly see success. And lastly, using gamification properly can yield tremendous results and enable your sales organization to crush its quota. Good luck.